cursed doll, the true Annabelle tapes. She sits quietly in a locked glass case inside a dim museum filled with items too dangerous to touch. She's not porcelain. She's not lifelike. She's a floppy, smiling Raggedy Ann doll. But don't let that fool you. According to two of the most famous paranormal investigators in the world, this doll doesn't just move on its own, it invites death. Forget what you saw in Hollywood. The real Annabelle is far stranger and far more terrifying. These are the true Annabelle tapes, the case files of a cursed doll so infamous it's locked away behind sacred wards, visited only by priests. And even they don't stay too long. One of the dolls that shouldn't be alive is introduced here. There are sculpted porcelain dolls with glassy eyes and menacing smiles that are used in horror films. These dolls are designed to be haunted. Which Annabelle is the genuine one? Her appearance is not at all frightening. She has a cloth, the cotton plant, gentle. On the surface, it appears to be a toy that is safe for children to play with. On the other hand, Ed and Lorraine Warren, two well-known demonologists who conducted the investigation into the case in 1970, assert that Annabelle is not a doll that is haunted. As a conduit, she is. A receptacle for something that is not human, a demonic spirit that, until it is welcomed in, pretends to be innocent. When it finally arrived, people were bitten, assaulted, and even took their own lives. The interviews that were retrieved, the uncensored reports from the Warrens files, and the frightening story of the true cursed doll that lies beneath the darkest mythology in the Conjuring universe are presented in the following paragraphs. The innocent gift. When Donna returned home one evening, she saw a small piece of parchment paper lying on the floor. This was something that they did not possess. The words "help me" were written in an almost infantile handwriting style. Another one emerged and it said, "Help us." Then the blood began to flow. In the middle of the night, Donna discovered the doll with what appeared to be spots of blood spread across its cloth hands and chest. They conducted a search of the apartment, and nobody was hurt or injured. The nature of the material could not be described. They invited over a medium, despite their continued skepticism. It was explained to them during the session that this property was the location where a young girl named Annabelle Higgins passed away. The doll is connected to her spirit in some way. The only thing she wants is to be liked. Donna's compassion moved her to grant the spirit permission to remain in the room. It was at that precise moment that everything began to shift, as stated by the Warrens. For the reason that Annabelle did not exist, it was never the case. The assaults started. Not long after that, the situation became more serious. Lou, a friend of Donna's who was skeptical and visited the apartment frequently, started having nightmares about horrific things happening there. When he was sleeping, he had a dream in which he saw the doll climbing up his body and choking him. He was trembling and sweating when he awoke, and he believed that the doll had been standing next to him. After some time had passed, Lou was alone in the flat when he heard rustling in Donna's room. When he opened the door, he noticed Annabelle sitting in a corner, completely still and unmoving. Shortly after that, he experienced a severe discomfort in his chest. As he lifted his shirt, he noticed 7 scratches that looked like claws on his body. These scratches were fresh and wet. By the following day, they had disappeared, but the message was unmistakable. The soul that was within Annabelle was not a young child. The situation was not the same. Something posing as something that is not harmful, and the door has been opened for it. The Warrens, the 4th part. Get here. Donna attempted to get in touch with Ed and Lorraine Warren, who are well-known paranormal investigators who have connections to the Catholic Church. She was desperate and afraid. After the Warrens arrived and conducted an inspection of the apartment, they came to the following conclusions. This is not a demonic being. It is a spirit that is malevolent and inhuman. It was never a young girl at any point. It was dishonest. The doll is being used as a Trojan horse by the organization. This analysis was unsettling. There was never a time when the spirit possessed the doll. In their explanation, they stated that dolls cannot be owned. Instead, the entity was taking control of the object to win the trust of a human host and eventually take possession of them. To put it another way, the doll served as bait. In order to have a blessing performed on their house, the Warrens made contact with a priest. The ritual was not a traditional exorcism, but rather a protection ceremony. After that, they brought the doll with them and put it in the back seat of their car, only to have something happen to Ed Warren that rocked him to his very core. Death that occurs on the highway. The Warren family came dangerously close to being involved in 3 accidents when they were driving back to their home in Monroe, Connecticut. Ed stated that the power steering in the vehicle had failed 3 times and that the brakes had locked up at vital points in the vehicle. Even though she was fastened, Annabelle would always be seated in an upright position whenever it occurred. After what seemed like an eternity, Ed eventually came to a stop, opened his briefcase, and commanded the doll to be blessed with holy water in the name of Jesus Christ. There was a cessation of the chaos. Upon their arrival at their residence, the Warrens proceeded to place the doll in Ed's study and went on to lock the room. However, this did not help. In the early hours of the morning, Annabelle was discovered floating next to Lorraine's bed. When she began levitating, she moved to other rooms and was eventually discovered floating there. In the end, Ed built a locked glass case, which can now be found in the Warrens Occult Museum. The case featured several protective prayers engraved on it, as well as a warning notice that was fastened to the front of the case. Positively, do not open. Even after that, the doll's terrifying behavior continued. Part 6. The accident involving the motorcycle. Several years later, when a young couple went to the museum, Annabelle was involved in what is considered to be the most horrifying episode that ever occurred. Lorraine claims that the man started making fun of the doll by beating it on the glass case and teasing it to demonstrate that it should do something. David cautioned him. The request to leave was made by Lorraine. It was stated that the man lost control of his motorcycle and slammed into a tree when he was on his way home. Instantaneously, he passed away. The fact that he continued to make fun of the doll while they were on the ride was later confirmed to the Warrens by his girlfriend, who had survived the ordeal. Without a shadow of a doubt, she thought that Annabelle was personally involved in the matter. Conclusion: evil wears a smile. Today, the real Annabelle still sits behind that glass case in Monroe, Connecticut. Blessed weekly by a priest, watched closely by those who know what she contains. She doesn't blink. She doesn't speak. She just waits. Because Annabelle is not haunted. She is not possessed. She is infested. The shell for something cold, cunning, and ancient. She is a reminder that evil doesn't always come with horns and fire. Sometimes it smiles, sometimes it's made of cloth, and sometimes it waits for someone to believe. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button, subscribe for more real horror tales, and let us know in the comments.